Okay. I think we need to talk, guys. I think we need to talk. This is like one of those things where it's like I was gonna say something, but then something happened and turned out nothing happened, so I'm now talking about it. So I don't care about scheduling this video. I want to release it as soon as possible because this needs to be addressed now. This needs to be flipping addressed. This is nerve-wracking to me, what it is. I'm getting very annoyed. So I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to ramble on a little bit. Obviously this video will be edited to some degree, but I just want to talk about the PlayStation 5 and the state that we as a gaming culture are in. Not just in terms of like frustration because of all this stuff that's going on, which I can't say because apparently it's an algorithm problem now. But you guys know what I'm talking about. You know, if you're watching this recently, you know what's going on and everything. But, you know, it's weird. I was thinking about talking about the PS5 because we hadn't heard anything. We hadn't heard any updates. We hadn't heard nothing. We've heard games coming out for the PS4 and stuff like that, but we've had nothing in regards to the next generation. No game releases, no how the system looks, not even deeper details. We knew about the specs, but we didn't know beyond that. And it was frustrating to me that Sony would withdraw this information, because Microsoft had just laid out the work of what the system is, with the exception of the fact the games, but they literally stated that there probably isn't going to be any game for the system until after the system is released, like a couple of months from then. Which is not a good thing, but yeah, I have my opinions on that one, so hang on for a second, I'll explain on that part. But in Sony's case, they haven't done anything. And I don't know what they're doing. Whether they're hiding something or there's something else that they want to do with it, but they don't want to just reveal it. You know what I mean? They don't want to just reveal it yet. Obviously, there's going to be some time left before the system officially does come out. And because of all this, it's not going to be released in 2020. It's pretty obvious that this won't come out until like 2021 or something. You know, because of all this. I was like, you know what? I'm fine, you know? I still believe, in my personal opinion, about a year or two ago, I still believe that we're still a little bit early to have a new console generation right now. I still believe that we are a little bit too far ahead. But companies are companies, they're going to do whatever they want. So if they want to make a new console generation, let them make one. Obviously so. With Nintendo, they had to cut the Wii U life short because they wasn't doing any well with it, and they realized if we continue, we're going to plummet. So that's why the Nintendo Switch came out, and ever since then, profits have been up. With Sony and Microsoft, obviously their systems are doing really well right now. They're not really in a very desperate position to hastily make the console for the next console generation. If nothing else, they're in a very comfortable position for the next 5 years, probably. This is me talking, but I'm sure some of you guys would agree with me whenever I say that. They're in a very comfortable position right now. Well, Microsoft maybe not so much, but you get my point. The thing that bothers me, though, is what happened yesterday, or at the timing of this recording, it will be yesterday, but, yesterday, or rather the day before, a big news came out. Basically, Sony PlayStation had announced that they were going to do a live stream unveiling of the PS5. Now, when you hear that word, what do you think in your mind? You probably think like I do. That they're finally going to show off the system. They're going to spill everything. You know, they're going to spill everything. You know, all the details in regards to the PS5. All the information we need, how the system's going to look, what games are going to be coming out for the next year or so. The point is that it's going to be the system unveiling. So, I was excited, as you would expect for me to be excited for. And even I stopped over in GameStop just for a quick moment, and even one of the employees was like, hey, there's going to be a stream for the PlayStation 5 in just a little bit. I was like, I know, I heard about it yesterday. So it was one of those things where it's like everyone was talking about it. Everyone was talking about it. And then the live stream happened. You know what it was? It wasn't an unveiling. It was more of a investor, shareholder, developers meeting video. Which, if that's the case, why'd you bother doing the live stream? You're a company. You should have a better means of showing information to your shareholders, much less to developers. You know? Why would you put together this stream just to tell us how the specs are? Most of us already knew all this. We knew how all this was. Admittedly, though, it was kind of interesting to kind of get a backseat tour of how developers go into developing games. What all do they have to consist of when it comes to developing games? It's kind of interesting to know how games get patched. It's kind of interesting to know how the system works to some degree. Both how the PS4 works, and according to what they're saying, how the PS5 works. But the way I looked at it, basically what they were saying is that the PS5 is going to run much smoother, and in terms of loading games, is not going to take a whole load onto the system, but rather because of how its enhanced computering system setup is, it will load games at a faster pace, and it's going to be a much, much more better experience for everyone. That's what I got out of it. If the game loads faster, that means it has better hardware to load stuff better. But it's more than just a computer enhancement tool. There's also a codec thing in there that makes it harder to load the game. And based on Sony's hardware, based on how developers have to develop the game, depends on how problematic the codec is going to be. For example, during that meeting they were talking about how if they wanted to patch the game, they had to create a separate file folder. They had to create a separate file. I'm getting so tongue twist today. They had to create a different file folder and then put it towards the game. It wasn't even in the game, it was towards the game, connected to the game rather. But according to what they're saying, the PS5 now creating patches is much more easier and smoother, and you don't have to worry about making separate folders and stuff. It can happen in the file itself. So it's interesting to know how developers have to struggle through when it comes to making the games that we love. It's interesting. But to me, when you make a full-on live stream of the unveiling of a system, what should have happened? You're to show the system what it will look like, what it's going to do, and what to expect in the future to come. They didn't really showcase anything. They just told us how the system was going to perform for future years to come. They just showed us how the specs was going to be. And it was like, we got that. We as a gaming culture already knew that. It's the developers that need to know. Or maybe even upcoming developers who need to know this stuff. Not the gamers. Not anybody else. Okay? Why put out this video? It made no sense to me at all. From what I saw from beginning to end, it was just tech babble. On the one hand, it was interesting tech babble, but tech babble nonetheless. It was very annoying to me, because I sat through almost an entire hour of this thing, thinking that towards the end they were going to do the system unveiling. You know, reveal rather. Because apparently there's a wording problem, apparently. Because apparently there's a difference between unveiling and revealing. Apparently, they're the big definition. And I ain't gonna bother looking that up. You can look it up yourself. But still, to a point, apparently there's a big gap between the two definition words. I'm finally gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about my frustrations about this. I'm gonna finally talk about what I thought was gonna happen. What I feel like maybe they're going to do, probably. At this rate, depending. And I'm willing to admit I could be wrong. I will be wrong, probably. But I still want to give my thoughts out there. As a Sony PlayStation fan, I want to give my thoughts out there. As to not only what I think is going to happen, but also what I want from the system. Which, compared to most people, is not a lot, but apparently to Sony, it's almost impossible to do, but I want to get it out there. So let's talk about the main criteria that I want for the system itself in upcoming updates. Because we know about the specs now, Sony. You've already went deep into details about this. We're done with the hardware specs. So there are 3 things that I want to know from the system. 1. Is it backwards compatible? 2. What the system looks like. Number 3. What are the games going to be when that happens? When the release of the system finally happens. The fact of the matter is, we know nothing beyond the specs. We only know the inside of the system. We don't know anything outside of it. And it's very annoying that that is the case. The fact that Sony hasn't come out and said anything about it. It's very annoying. So, backwards compatibility to me is a big thing. May not be for a lot of people, and to Sony, they'll look at it and be like, why backwards compatibility? Why is that a big necessity to you? Why is it a big deal? Why is it a big deal? I don't know. Maybe partially of the reason is because you don't have everything virtually available in your PlayStation Store, much less PlayStation Now, which arguably I don't use ever. I probably should, because they have a lot of PS2 games on there from what I've heard, but I don't use it. Because I doubt I could stream games anyway. That may be a shock to you guys, but I can't. It's not feasibly possible for me. That's why I don't have Google Stadia. Then again, they don't have a lot of games either. Most of the games that I want, I currently already got. Which isn't a lot according to the library. But still to a point though. Sony's online network does not have every game on there. And the PlayStation 3 arguably had a lot of the PlayStation 1's and PlayStation 2 games on its network. But guess what? It's non-transferable to the PS4. Ain't that interesting? How that works. You know, you buy something on one system, but you can't carry it over. You know, it's much like movies. You know? Arguably, if you want to watch something, you want to be able to carry it over to the current hardware. When you're able to, that is. But if you can't, what else can you do? It sucks. But for some reason, companies just like to fiddle around with the ideal of, you don't own shit. They want to give you the rights to view it. They want to give you the option to view it. Because they don't want you to own it. Which doesn't make sense to me at all. You are selling us a product, yet we ourselves cannot own it in our hands. It's much like a vacuum cleaner seller. This is going to sound weird, but follow me along. A vacuum cleaning seller is selling you the vacuum cleaner. And say you want a vacuum cleaner. You're needing one. You've been meaning to get one for a while. And you're like, you know what? I'll buy a vacuum cleaner from you. You buy it from him, and then you vacuum what you need, but then he takes it back. And you look at him and go, I bought the vacuum cleaner. You bought the use for the vacuum cleaner. That doesn't necessarily mean you own the vacuum cleaner. That makes no fucking sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know why the industry is what it is. Movies are like that now. Video games have been like this apparently for some time. It's annoying. It makes no sense to me. To me, for starters, one, why would we want to re-buy what we already own? Unless, of course, your disc is scratched up and unable to be readable and stuff like that, which is understandable. I do understand that. But why would we want to buy it again? Know what I mean? Especially if you look at it from a digital standpoint. I bought Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1. And then, of course, years later, it became digitally available for the PS3. I bought that because not only could I play it on the PlayStation 3, but also that same single purchase, I was able to play it on my PSP. I could transfer files between the two systems and not only carry it from the PlayStation 3, but also carry it on the PSP. It was like an early ideal concept for how the Nintendo Switch was going to look like. Obviously less costly, but you get the point. But I then bought it again on PS4. Why did I went on ahead and did that? Well, part of the reason was because I just wanted to. I wanted to buy it again and be able to play on the PS4. But the main reason was because you can't transfer it from the PlayStation 3 to the PS4. You can't. There have been numerous talks about how the programming for the PlayStation 3 is vastly different to the PS4. And the PS3, in terms of development, is majorly different from the PS2. And that was the main reason, was because it was to prevent hacking. Even though years later it became hackable. I believe the terminology is, if you say it ain't gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If you say it ain't hackable, some people are gonna prove you wrong. To which they have. Why is it that we can't get backwards compatible in a console? Why? In my personal opinion, we should have that ability to. We should. It's like, we as gamers, if we want that, we're gonna get it somehow or another. By legal means, and I hate to say it out loud, but by illegal means if we have to. Obviously by learning a code and downloading it and programming it into our systems. Most of us have done that for years, what with homebrew systems and stuff like that, so it's no major surprise. But I wanted Sony to actually contribute to that and be like, hey, you like the PS5? We're opening up the floodgates for you. Now you can play whatever you want. And the main reason is because obviously a lot of people have theories that this could be the last console generation we will ever see. In my personal opinion, I think that's false. I think that's false because of two main reasons. Reason number one is mostly because of sales. If something sells well, a company would be wise to keep selling that. A company would be wise to keep doing it. And obviously, the PS4 sold amazingly. And funny thing is, after the PS4 launch, they released several different models, including the PS4 Pro. And that sold extremely well. So, when you look at numbers like that, why would you stop making consoles? Admittedly, yes, it would be costly, but with the investment needed, you'd be willing to risk that take, wouldn't you? Then again, companies are willing to risk for a digital age, not knowing if they were going to have what they wanted. You know? It's like that. They want to invest in something, they're going to invest it regardless of risk. If it takes a big plummet, they'll know never to do it again and they'll turn back around. But if it leads to success, they're going to stick to that. I don't know why, but they will. Regardless if it improves things or not. You know? But, part of the reason is obviously because of money, but the other reason is because of how far in technology we have gotten. What's funny about during that live stream event of the unveiling of the system, he talked about how during the 2 years that he talked to developers about what they wanted for the next console and how they want to do in terms of developing games and stuff, he talked about how the hardware has changed drastically. He said that from where they went with the current, 2 years ago, current PC component lineup, he said that these were the components that was necessary in order to help better perform for the game. Now, as 2 years have passed, they have better hardware now. Better and improved hardware that outlines the previous one from 2 years ago. This makes sense. Because future changes. There's always going to be something better the next year. There's always going to be something better within time. Some of us can easily wait for that improvement to happen, but some of us just want to get it right now. Why do you think so many people switch over cell phones? I've still got mine from a year ago. Yet people switch off phones every year, it seems. Why is that? Why would you trade off your phone for a better one when your current one was working just fine? Well, because it has improved hardware. Why would you do that, though? Why would you do that? I still got my original PS4 that I first bought. I never bought a PS4 Pro, and that's only because I haven't bought a 4K TV because my TV still works. And it's 10 years old? I honestly don't remember when I bought this one. So, I think it's 10 years? Either way, you get my point. Hardware's working, why would I want to replace it? But because of improved tech, they're going to make a new console. So that's the main reason why I think that's counterintuitive. It's because of money and because of technology. Why would it be the last console generation? They're going to keep making them so long as it continues to do that. When technology stops, that's whenever you stop making a new console because there's nothing to improve after that. But because there's always something to improve, you're always going to be making something new. That's why I think it won't be the last console generation. But, theory being, if it was to be the last console generation, wouldn't you want to go out with a bang? Like, listen to this phrase. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last console generation you will ever receive, but it will be the only console you will ever need. Those are big words to use. But, by saying that it's fully backwards compatible to all PlayStation games lineup, you have that ability now. You can play all your games on it. Microsoft kinda does that. And I can't believe I'm pulling them into the ring, but whenever people explain this to me, it makes sense. So, the way Microsoft uses backwards compatibility for some of its games is that it reads the code in the disk like a key card. If it can read the key card, it will download the game from its archives. And so long as you have the disk, you can now play the game in your system. Pretty impressive, wouldn't you agree? Obviously, Sony probably doesn't want to do something like that, but they don't have to. They can make their own thing. You know, I just want it backwards compatible. Why can't we have that option? Is it a crime to want something like that? Apparently it is. And during the whole viewing, apparently, according to what he was stating, and I hope to God that is wrong, but it sounded like the PS5 is only going to be backwards compatible for a handful of PS4 games. Obviously, he's probably referring to the fact that the digital game sidelines of things aren't transferable to the PS5, but it sounds like to me he's talking about physical games too. What games are backwards compatible to the PS5? I have no clue. But apparently it's only a handful of games. So in other words, you probably won't be able to play through Kingdom Hearts 3, which is arguably the most recent so far. Probably can't play Final Fantasy VII Remake. How shocking is that? And probably can't play Bloodborne. Wow. What a bunch of assholes. You make it backwards compatible, but it's not fully. How stupid is that? How stupid are you? You know? In terms of graphically enhanced, there's nothing to improve. You got better hardware, so what's the point in making the codec change? Why can't you just have it be fully backwards compatible? What's weird is that they talked about how they had to enable a chip. A simple chip to read the games. Apparently, according to the company, it cost them a lot of money just to make that chip to where it could be backwards compatible. So, to comply to the audience, they believe if they cut that backwards compatibility completely, it will be cheaper for the audience. Okay, Sony, allow me to bring you this option then, shall I? I hate to resolve to this, and I know a lot of people don't want to. They don't want to resolve to this direction, but I want to. Okay? A lot of people are going to hate me. I'm going to see a lot of negative feedback on this one. But I'm going to say it. How much would it cost to have the ability to do backwards compatible for our games? How much money do you want? I don't want to say that, but I'm going to. Okay? It needs to be talked about. Because if I want backwards compatible, I want it. So what do I have to do to get it? You know? What do I have to do? It's one of those things that I don't think people realize. You know, I don't think people realize the convenience of backwards compatible. I don't think they realize the true convenience of it. If for some reason the PS5 is in backwards compatibility with anything, which it should, then what would happen if Sony came out and said the phrase, to reduce costs to the system, backwards compatibility is cut off completely. However, we will give you the option in future time. Meaning, once the system comes out, eventually there will be an app, a tool, whatever the wording they want to use, to allow people to do backwards compatibility for their systems. Depending on the circumstances, it could be relevant. For example, I think backwards compatibility for like the PS1 and PS2, and this is being merciful, $30. I'm rough guessing at this point, but might be $30. Backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 3, because of how the codec works, might be an extra $10 or so. And then backwards compatibility for the PS4, another $10. So roughly $50, $60 depending. Would people buy that for the backwards compatibility? A lot of people would say they're dumb. But most of us would jump in. Most of us would jump in on that ship. Including myself. It's sad. We don't want to think like that because it should be there automatically. But if we want the option, we obviously have to get results. You know, it sucks that we can't get what we want, but we might as well work with what we can. You know? It's like, give us the options then. And it sucks that I have to say that, but it's true. I'm hoping that it is backwards compatible. That's my biggest criteria. I even said it literally numerous of times. If it is backwards compatibility, then I will buy it year one. If not, I'm going to wait a couple of years afterwards. That way, it has a good lineup of games, and I don't have to worry about having a system that I'm not using. You know, because what's the point in owning something if you can't use it? The second thing that I want to know is obviously how the console looks like. You know, we've been seeing this image for so long. A lot of us knows this is only a dev kit. And as many people have explained, dev kits always look different than how the actual console look. Seriously, you should look at how half of the developer kits for these consoles originally looked like. They look ridiculously stupid. But it was only because they had to have something to test their games on, obviously. And then eventually when the actual system came out, it looked drastically different. Probably mostly because after they showcased what it might look like, there were feedbacks. Mostly criticism. So, to avoid criticism, they decided to change the system to some degree, probably, to make it look like what it looks like. Because they didn't want to have a controller that looks like a banana. I have no doubt in my mind that this console is probably going to be another black box. You know, since the PlayStation 2, they've kind of stuck with that trend. And honestly, it makes sense. If this is going to be another black box, let it be another black box. I'm perfectly fine with that. Although it would be interesting if it did actually have a unique look, but I don't want this look. You know what I mean? I don't want that. It looks stupid, in my personal opinion. At least, again, I'm pulling Microsoft in on this, at least with their console, it's generic. Yes, it looks like a regular alien hardware system, but there you go. Nothing to work with on that one. So, I have no doubt in my mind that Sony will do another black box, much like how they've done the past 3 console generations, with a few console variants here and there, obviously. But they didn't show off what the system looks like. We're still kind of left in the mystery zone of what it's going to look like. We still do not know. But the biggest thing that we still need to know is what games are going to come out for the system. Surprisingly, Ghost of Tsushima is still scheduled for PS4 this year. We are still getting Final Fantasy VII Remake this year. In fact, within the next few weeks. So, where are the games? I don't know if we're going to get any of the information that we're going to want from the PS5. Because, obviously, we're still months away from whenever it might be remotely due. I still get the funny feeling it's going to be pushed back for next year. I have no doubt in my mind that it will be. You know, the situation that we're in right now, things are being canceled and delayed. I don't blame people. I don't. I blame the situation in hand, but I don't blame people for overreacting. But I was thinking that after all of this finally got eased off a bit and people calmed down a little bit from overreacting and realized, I overreacted, now I have a couch made of toilet paper. But, that's funny. But, I would have figured Sony would have come out to the rescue, being Superman for the day, and say, hey, we're going to do a special state of play revealing of the system. Unveiling versus revealing. Apparently that wording is key, apparently. But we're going to do a system reveal. And I figure they would have spelled everything that we need to know about the PlayStation 5, including if it was going to be backwards compatible, including showing off at least 3 popular AAA titles that are coming out for the system. At some point in time. May not be within the next year, but show off at least 3 trailers for what to expect. As crazy as that sounds, Makes perfect sense to me. Doesn't seem like we're going to get that right now. And we're probably not going to get that until probably June or July at this rate. But Sony, get off of your lazy ass and just show us the system. Just show us the system already, alright? I feel better. I feel better. I've ranted long enough. I've talked about it long enough. Oh, gosh. So, if you don't mind, guys, I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to play me some PlayStation 2 games. Because, apparently, the PlayStation 4 can't play PlayStation 2s. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.